All the characters in the story are over 18 years old. I went to my room. Once inside, I just leaned against the wall. The image of my mother was imprinted in my head. I tried to sleep, but I kept seeing her in my mind. Only the three of us lived in the house: Dad, Mom, and me. I was an only child. My mother got married early and gave birth to me when she was only 20 years old. At 38, she was elegantly beautiful, with a figure that attracted admiring glances. Dad worked in banking, and we lived well. I was going to leave for university soon. Mom never mentioned this incident, and over time, I guess she forgot about it. But the day it happened, and then for a while, I felt that she was not comfortable when we were alone and my father was not around. I was nervous myself. I couldn't look her in the eye. But my feelings for her have changed dramatically. I made it a rule to keep track of the time of day when she took a bath. One day, when both of them were not at home, I took a drill and made a small hole in the wooden panel of the bathroom wall and sealed it with a sticker, almost imperceptibly. I lost interest in the girls I was dating as I was consumed by my illicit pursuit of her. Mom noticed that I'm always at home and don't go outside like I used to. She asked me if I had any problems with my friends. I told her that I was more interested in my computer. One day at dinner, Dad told us that the bank was opening a new branch in a neighboring state and that he needed to arrange an installation. He'll be gone for a week. My mom and I sent him to the airport. While we were driving home, Mom said that she would miss me soon too, since I was leaving for university in a month. I replied that the feeling was mutual, but my heart sank knowing that the woman sitting next to me, smiling lovingly at me, would soon be so far away from me. My mind started to wander, and I almost ran through a traffic light. Mom looked at me and said, "Because of your thoughts, you almost passed a traffic light. You seem to be puzzled by something. I can feel it. Is there anything bothering you?" I was silent for a while, not knowing what to say. "It's okay, Mom. Maybe it's because I'm leaving you and I'm really going to miss you," I said, turning slightly to look at her. I could feel my heart beating fast just being so close to her. "I'm going to miss you too, son. I love you," she smiled at me. "If only you knew, Mom, if only you knew," I said to myself. When we got home, she made us a hot drink and said she was going out for the night. On the third day after my father left, it was 10 p.m., and I was watching a program on TV. I was startled by the sound of something falling from my mother's room. I quickly went out and knocked on her door. I shouted, "Mom, you're okay." I thought something fell. There was no answer. Then I heard a muffled scream. I turned the handle of her bedroom door and opened it to look inside. I quickly went to her. When I knelt down next to her, she grimaced and said, "I hit a chair and fell. It was very clumsy of me." I tried to pick her up carefully, but she stopped me. "No, let me sit here for a while. My ankle hurts a little," she said. "I'll take the healing lotion," I told her. "You just rest, Mom." I went to the medicine cabinet and got the oil. "Let's put you on the bed so you can lie down." I was well built for a teenager and could easily lift my mother when I carried her in my arms and laid her on the bed. She sighed, and I saw that her eyes were closed. Her voice pierced my foggy mind almost in a whisper. "Matt, what are you doing?" I knew I had gone too far and didn't want to go back. I couldn't even if I wanted to. I was about to commit an unforgivable sin. I looked at her in silence, and after a few minutes we made love. I closed the door behind her and ran to my room. I sat down on a chair, completely exhausted. I got up and walked around the room, not knowing what to do. I took a shower and put on a new pair of clothes. I almost ran out of the house. Wandering aimlessly, I finally found myself somewhere a few blocks away from me. What have I done? Was Mom going to report me to the authorities? Did she call her father just now? Will I end up in jail? I kept walking in a daze. I felt something shaking me. I opened my eyes and saw a policeman standing next to me. "What are you doing here, Matt?" he said. My mind was in limbo. Looking around, I saw that I was lying in an alley by the road. I replied incoherently. I saw that it was Officer James, a local policeman whom we all knew. "Are you drunk, young man?" he said. 2 o'clock in the morning, come on. I'll take you home." Listlessly, I got up and got into his patrol car. "I didn't know you were drinking, Matt. If you promise me it won't happen again, I won't tell your parents," he said. "I promise, sir," I replied. resigned to the fact that the worst could be expected when we got home. He dropped me off when we got to the house. He patted me on the shoulder and waved his hand as he walked away. I stood and looked at the house. There was a light on the porch, and I saw that the light in my mother's room was on too. I had nowhere to go, so with great trepidation I opened the front door. It wasn't locked. I went in and turned off the porch light. When I got to my room, the door of Mom's room opened and she came out. Time stopped while we were looking at each other. I saw that she was crying. Her eyes are swollen. Her hair is pulled back, tied in a ponytail. She looked so vulnerable and sad. I assumed that she had taken a shower, trying to get rid of the act that I had done to her earlier, trying to erase her memory. "Where did you go, Matt? I was beside myself with worry," she said softly. "I called Officer James to find you. I just told him that we had a misunderstanding and that you probably got drunk somewhere in the city." My eyes avoided her gaze, and I stood trembling, unable to say a word. I almost ran up to her and fell to my knees. "Forgive me, Mom. I beg you. Please." The words burst from the depths of me. She slowly stepped back, and I let her go. She didn't answer me when she returned to her room. She closed the door and then turned off the light. In the dark, I got up and went to my room. Sleep was not easy, and I tossed and turned. I just hoped that tomorrow would never come. When I woke up, it was raining heavily. The events of yesterday are clearly etched in my memory. While I was taking a shower, images played in my head, and I could still smell her scent. I didn't dare leave my room for breakfast. Although all sorts of disturbing scenarios were running through my head, dark thoughts prevailed in my head. I assumed she wouldn't tell anyone what happened between us. It was our secret. Her upbringing would not want society to know about the sin we committed, even though none of them were her fault. The more I thought about it, the more my feelings for her grew. I heard a knock on my door. I opened it, and my mother stood in front of me. "Lunch is ready," she said, turned around and left. She was sitting at the table when I arrived. I pulled up a chair and sat down. She prepared a tray of roast beef. We ate in silence. Unable to restrain myself, I kept sneaking glances in her direction, but she did not raise her head, looking only at her plate. Finally, I couldn't stand it. "Please talk to me, Mom," I said, pushing the plate away. She remained quiet, encouraged by the fact that she still loves me as her son and that our secret will remain between us. I poured out my pent-up feelings that I had been holding in myself all this time. "But in the last few months, I couldn't understand the feeling I had for you. I know it's so wrong and sinful, but my love for you turned into something that I couldn't figure out on my own." She couldn't believe the words that came out of my mouth, her own son. She clasped her hands to cover her ears. She shook her head, got up from the table, and went to her room, locking the door. I continued to sit there alone, wondering what all this was leading to. That night, I walked around my room. Every nerve was taut. Dad will be home in a few days. I'll be leaving soon. My needs were greater than any consequences that would befall me in the future. I made a decision even when I went to her room. I stood at her door, my heart pounding. Without knocking, I turned the handle and it wasn't locked. Mom was lying and looking at me. There was a bright light in her room, and I could see her concern. I slammed the door and locked it. When I went to her bed, her eyes were wide and full of fear. "What do you want?" she said almost inaudibly. Without saying a word, I turned on the bedside lamp and turned off the main light in the room. I've lost all sense of reasoning. We did it again. I was awakened by the sound of thunder. Mom was still asleep. I looked at the clock by the table. They showed 4 a.m. I knew she was awake, but she was silent, allowing me to please her. When I woke up the next morning, I was lying alone in her bed. When I remembered last night, I realized that I had committed the greatest sin. I dressed quickly and went to my room. Mom was sitting on the couch in the hall. We looked at each other. I wanted to comfort her, but now the words didn't matter. It happened, and nothing could change that. I just didn't know what to do. We tried to avoid each other for the next 2 days. We didn't talk. The food was always ready for me on the table. Mom locked herself in her room. Dad will come home the next day. How life has changed in just a few days. My longing for her did not decrease at all. In fact, I continued to think about our beautiful couple. Dad's return the next day will be the end of everything. That night, after taking a bath, I sat down and wondered if I should spend the last time with my mom. I sat there for about an hour, and it was already late. It was almost midnight. I couldn't take it anymore. I went into her room. With a heightened sense of anticipation, I stared at the door handle. If she hadn't wanted me, the door would have been locked. With great trepidation, I turned the knob. With a sigh of relief, I opened it. The table lamp was on, and Mom was sitting on her bed. She looked at me. I silently entered and locked the door. I assumed that she instinctively knew why I was in her room, because I hadn't tried anything for the last 2 days. Dad was coming home. I heard her say softly, "Your father called and said he would be on the 7 a.m. flight tomorrow." My heart started racing when I found out that there were only a few hours left before we had to go to the airport to pick him up. Matt said soothingly, "You know, Mom, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to be careful, and I know you're going to like it. I'll turn off the light." The lights were off, and the room was dimly lit by the shadows of the street lights. They did it again. It was their big secret. It was almost 4 o'clock in the morning. In 2 hours, the mother and son were supposed to go to the airport. In a dazed state, she told her son to leave her room, as she needed to clean up. Matt wanted to say something, but restrained himself. Walking wearily, he went to his room. Marilyn looked at the mess they had made. She forced herself to remove the evidence, even though she was very tired. Even in her state of mind, she couldn't forget the words Matt had said. They drove to the airport in silence. Sam was waiting for them when they reached the arrival hall. "I was on an earlier flight," he told them, "but I didn't want to disturb your beautiful sleep," he told his wife. Matt looked away from his father, grabbed his suitcase, and walked to the car. 2 weeks later, Matt said goodbye to his mom and dad when he caught a flight to attend Stanford University. Later that month, he received a letter from his father. He told him about what was happening at home and about his appointment as a bank director. Towards the end of the letter, he read, "Son, we have a pleasant surprise for you. You're going to have a brother or sister. It must be a coincidence that I was appointed director of the bank. We look forward to seeing you during the holidays. Who do you think this child is from? Of course, from me."